when I go live, no matter how many times I've done it a lot. But the beginning for me is always this weird kind of surreal moment. But so here we are. Great. And now I will start the webinar. Okay. And I've got to kill that. Okay. Okay. Am I on Gabriel Mark Lipper Fine Art? You are. Great. Okay, and I'm going to share the Learning to See too. Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. This is really fantastic for me. I just you know, meeting you both finally officially here on Zoom, our home away from home, it seems, is really great. And May made this happen, so I really appreciate that, May. So I'm just letting people come in on Facebook and join the webinar now, and so we'll take a couple minutes there just to let people fill in. But I just want to thank you guys for being here, and then let's make some introductions. Let's see more. Okay. All right. Well, so hi to everyone out there across the world. I see you coming in from Ireland and Vermont and California and England and Vancouver and Oregon, and that's how Zoom works, and it's amazing. And I think there'll probably even be a couple of you here from Australia, which would be in the wee hours of the morning, but that's exciting as well. My students are being able to join on Zoom, which is really exciting because you know, they're here, but there was a limit of 100. So the first 100, they'll get in, and then the rest of you can find this on Gabriel Mark Lipper Fine Art, my Facebook page, and it's streaming live there. Once it's done streaming live, I think we should be able to maybe share it. So we'll try to proliferate the world with the conversation. Oh, that's what I don't want. As long as it goes well. So let's start with, I'm with John Seed, Michele Leclaire, and May Klisch. And May, maybe you can make some introductions here. How did this all come about, and who are we?
Thank you, Gabe. So Gabe is my art guru, but I also came across last year John Seed as I was taking another course with Nick Wilton. And I'm a realist painter, and when I listened to John Seed with Nick Wilton, it suddenly opened up a whole new world to me, because there was this window into that world which I had not ever seen before. So something brand new, and this world of disrupted realism that he introduced was an eye-opener. So I sort of went down that rabbit hole with John Seed. And the story will evolve later, but all I can tell you is that it's singularly the most exciting book and movement in art that I've encountered in my short time with art. And I think that it's something that is just beginning. I wanted to say that John has probably broken open the mold for so many different people by naming this phenomenon disrupted realism. I realized that we began with discombobulation, but disrupted realism is a terrific nomenclature for it. And then, of course, I met Michele Leclaire this year when this past year when I was juried into the 2021 Disrupted Realism show. So Michele and I have a few conversations, but I appreciate that her gallery is hosting this wonderful show. The genesis of this panel discussion is actually, I thought that because I came upon John and I looked into that world, I wanted to give our graduating students from Learning to See 2020 and 2021 the opportunity to explore that world firsthand with John. So it began with my thought that I'd like to give them a little gift of having John talk to them. And so I actually connected with him and Michele before I even mentioned this to Gabe. I'm of the school of, act first and ask forgiveness later. But Gabe jumped on board very happily. And so here we are. It grew and grew, and now we're all over the globe. And so I want to ask Gabe to monitor and take us through this session, because I think that he has that segue that was so important to me. That segue that actually helped me with bridging realism and abstraction. So Gabe, back to you.
Well, thank you, Maeve. John, when I actually saw you for the first time on when Nicholas was interviewing you, and Nick and I worked together for the second through fourth year in his program. I was a coach on Art to Life, but I saw that interview with you, and what just kind of leveled me were the artists that you had chosen to be in your book, Disruptive Realism.
Right. Okay.
Were artists that I not only admired, but were following. And I mean, there's a visual dialogue that takes place in our world. And as an artist, I think we're more tuned in, or I think we can be more tuned in than really anybody visually. And so I saw these artists making, those connections, and you gave it a name. You gave it the name Disrupted Realism, and it resonated so strongly for me because of this distracted world we live in. Here we are in Zoom a couple years later. And yeah, so that just blew me away. And that you had been able to put the pen to it and describe succinctly what was going on visually in so many artist studios, and then bring many of them, to the book, was just cool. So I bought it right away, and so that was a big thing for me. I put together a little slideshow of some of the images that you have, in the book, or artists that you shared in the book. And what I was wondering is if you could just tell us a little bit, for those who don't know or who aren't familiar with Disrupted Realism, kind of what that is. This is Anne Gale. She was the first person that I saw breaking the edges in a way that was well, it was disrupted. It wasn't typical. It wasn't. It's not, like nothing I'd seen before at the time. So.
Okay, well, Gabe, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a delight to be here on Zoom, and my kids tell me I'm Mr. Webinar now. That platform didn't exist a year ago. We're all adapting, but it's a wonderful way to meet new people and share ideas. And I have to tell you, the reason I'm in the visual art field, two reasons. First of all, I'm kind of an accumulator. I like to be surrounded by art, visually, but I also love the conversation. So I appreciate being here for the conversation with all of you. Disrupted realism, I try to tell people, it's not a single style. It's not a single approach. There's no one singular thing. And what I tried to do in the book is I tried to bring together artists that I just really was interested in, that I respected, that got me excited, that as a painter, because I am a painter, along with everything else as a painter, they excited me. And they all shared the fact that in some way, realism alone, traditional, whatever you want to call it, straight realism, literal realism, mimetic realism, the tradition of realism didn't allow them to say everything they wanted to say in their work. So they found another way, usually a very individual way of perceiving or representing what they wanted to put out there in the world as their visual art. So the first thing I want to say is that disrupted realism, it's not the term, as much as people are saying, you like it and the term is working for now, I wouldn't mind at all if it gets worn out or thrown away later, a couple of years after the book. Maybe we can look back and say, oh, that was a pretty lame thing that John came up with now. We've got it much better now. But it really was an opener. It was a way of saying something is happening in this field of painting that's very vital and very exciting, and individual artists are making it happen. The role of a writer-curator, the role I try to play is as an advocate for artists and kind of someone who's looking at it and thinking about it and processing it to get the conversation going. So
well, I think you've done that so beautifully.
Broad answer? I don't know.
No, you really are that advocate, because I think when I saw you bring these artists together, these are we're all living in different cities. We're all over the place. And all of a sudden, there are these artists sharing your pages, and it was this recognition that something is happening here. There was a pulse that you are tapped into. And I loved seeing, it was obviously very well thought out. The artists you're picking are, when you can hit on this one and this one and this one and this one, and we all can resonate as an artistic community with what you're saying by putting these artists out there. It really, it actually, ironically, it made me feel like I was seen, because I was struggling with a lot of these things, and here are these other artists who are going through their own iterations and creating their own visual vocabulary. And I think a lot of times when you're painting in your studio, I imagine you've had this experience, you're alone. So to have this visual connection being laid out there and giving it a name, some people are, hesitant to shoulder a name or be part of a movement. But it was clearly a very, very thoughtful approach to just art. It's not even art criticism. It's just putting it out there. And
well, they say a person's strengths and weaknesses are the same thing. And my strength / weakness is I'm very, very broad. I tend to kind of like everything and be interested in everything. So that really cripples me, right? Because, looking at art, people say, well, John, what's your favorite artist? What are you looking at? And I say to them, well, yesterday at 10 o'clock, or, right now, or 3 years ago. It's like a changing constantly. And so I think I'll say something nice about myself. I think what I'm proud of about the book is I looked at a lot of artists and a lot of material to be able to land on, these people belong together. But my weakness is if you follow my writing or you read my blogs, I'm never the person to kind of cut things down and say, this is the best, and I've got a hierarchy, and we really have a handle on this. I don't do that at all. So broad I can do, and that's what I bring to the book. And I also want to say something about how I was different from most art critics, because that's part of the book. My wife is a former front page news editor. She was in the newspaper business for a long time. And, I'm a writer, so it's a marriage of writers. And I got into writing about art just about the time that newspapers were absolutely beginning to fail. At the time when I began writing about art, newspapers, it was the fastest declining industry in the United States because of the internet. And my wife's friends, she had already left work, to be at home, to be a stay-at-home mom, but her friends were losing their jobs, and
this art studio is an old newspaper building.
That's so
my
apropos.
Art studio is the old print house for the newspaper. So
yeah. So apropos. But
yeah.
While all this was happening, the Huffington Post Arts page came along. It was June of 2010, and a friend got me a blog on the HuffPost Arts page, and that was the first. It started in the United States, but it really was international. It was the first free internet-based newspaper, and the traffic was insane. Yeah. There was a blog I wrote that had 1 million page views in a day once, which that was my record. AOL put it on the homepage. And there's nothing like that now because everything has atomized. Sure. But I had this incredible platform, and I started writing about artists, and I mainly wrote about representational artists because they were my friends. They were the people I'd gone to school with. They were the people I knew. And one of the first realizations I had is this, and I really want your students to think about this because I think this is a cool point. You get this idea that there's, I'll put the air quotes, an art world, there's the art world. and the New York Times makes you want to think that it's Gerhard Richter or Jeff Koons. It's people that, 20 million and up, that's the
Blue
art.
chip.
They are.
Yeah.
I love those guys, right?
Yeah.
But now with the internet, there's actually a lot of art worlds. And these kind of, we'll call it affinity groups, people that, you've seen something or you enjoy something or you have things in common. And Gabriel, back to your introduction, when you were saying, oh, I picked up the book and I kind of connected with this and thought like, yeah, it's great that John put these together because I like these people. Well, we're part of the same affinity tribe in art.
Right. Right.
And having the internet, allows us to make our own art world. And that's what we're here. That's what we're doing today at this Zoom is Michelle and May and you and everybody who's taking an interest. We're part of one little art bubble or art world today. And the internet has made that happen. It's very fresh.
It's amazing. And actually I want to jump into this affinity and and share a little bit more about, what are we talking about? Disrupted realism. What does it look like? So this is Anne Gale again. She was the first artist that I saw breaking the edges in a really graphic, violent way, and beautifully. Like her work is stunning. Let's get this a little bigger.
Joby Chadwick. It was the second show I've seen in 14 months, but I drove up to San Francisco to see it because that was a must for me.
This is the kind of work that you want to see standing in front of it at a wall. It's it's incredible, right? And
she's a painter's painter, and I know that's a bit of a cliche, but artists, when they see Anne's work, she's very unassuming personally, and her art is phenomenal. She's someone we can all respect, honestly.
Yeah, she's incredible, and also she was at the she was an innovator in a way that I hadn't seen. All of a sudden, here was Anne Gale, and what was that? And then, speaking of innovators, Alex Kanevsky, another amazing innovator, and he took this breaking up of shapes that Anne's doing, right, and continued with it to this next almost surreal level. If you look up his work, it's really all over the place.
It's like
I've only included a couple here.
Freud had a child in Russia, when it was Alex Kanevsky, because the slipperiness of abstract painting is there. There's this luxurious looseness in Alex's work, but he's really got the chops. You can really feel the structure and the commitment to realist painting that's underneath. Yeah,
he's a draftsman. He understands the drawing. It's beautiful, beautifully executed, but also how did he get there? That's when I first saw his work, I was floored by it. I didn't understand what this process was, but I knew I loved it. And then this is Zoe Frank. Now the images I have of Zoe Frank's are these interiors or a still life. What I love about this doesn't look disrupted in many ways. It's a little bit here and there, but the whole tone, the whole mood is composition. And she's just taking these mundane objects and making something fantastic with it. I actually took a little workshop of hers, I think it was last year, and I just really enjoyed listening to her and kind of getting her perspective on the world. She's so driven. She's a real force.
And I want to say something for her because she's not here. She is slightly uncomfortable with the label disrupted realism, which I think is great. Because it's not about labeling people. If you listen to her on the John Dalton podcast, you'll hear a lot about where she's going and what she's doing now. But I'll just put out there that there's some planar activity in Zoe's work, maybe references to cubism and to multiplicity and to time. And that's another thing we see in some of the work in the book.
Yeah, and moving forward, I almost included one of her most recent works, but she's actually been, and this is, I wanted to talk about this very thing that you're addressing, John, because disrupted realism is maybe the beginning of potentially a cycle for realist artists. I go all the way back to the realist artists of the 1800s. And watching how that whole cycle kind of broke down and shifted, and the Impressionists emerged, and then the Fauvists, and it moved. Picasso followed with abstraction, and you can see it in the artists of today going through this. We want our chops. We want to learn how to draw and paint and get it right, and then what? How do we express ourselves with those tools? And I think that's what you see. This is Nick Grunge, right?
Nick Grunge. And something that I put out there is my model of art history is not as linear as the textbooks. I like the idea of a long unbroken line, and I tell people whoever made King Tut's funeral mask is doing the same thing that you're doing in the studio today. I think art has a universal and kind of eternal purpose. And I'm really interested where the different approaches and the different attitudes intersect with each other and create something new, like fusion cooking. So maybe that's another way to think of disrupted realism. It's modernism and realism. And what did I say to somebody? They're having a lot of sex is another way to put it.
This is John Wentz's work, and you've nailed it. This is fusion. I mean, you can see the abstraction exploding through this canvas. You can see his drawing. He's showing every part of his process.
Together. No, they're having a little quarrel with each other too. You know, it's not seamless in any way.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see this kind of work. And now this is Alyssa Monk's work, and I think this kind of falls right into line.
And I have one here up above my head. Well, it's a little small. I have one of Kirstine. She mailed it from Germany. We'll come to Alyssa Monk's. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Although so, I'm used to correcting people. I'll shake my finger at you, Gabriel.
Wait, is this not Alyssa Monk? Did I miss it? Who's this?
Kirstine Reiner Hansen. She was here in the Bay Area.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had it mislabeled. I'm sorry.
Berlin. Yeah. And she likes what she says about her work. She tries to create impossibly glamorous figures, but in kind of strange, broken configurations, which that describes this pretty well.
It certainly does, and even more impossibly broken. You know, there's these elements of realism still holding true, and then the whole thing is just kind of it's being deconstructed. That's a word I use a lot. This idea of we start with something solid, and then we deconstruct it. Where does it go?
Yeah, and Cubism.
This brings us to the show, the current show, which this is Carol Kay's piece, talking about deconstruction. This idea of starting with a singular kind of idea and disrupting it, and then here she's almost completely lost any singular theme except for the chaos that she's creating here, which I love.
Hey, Gabriel, can I be a troublesome guest for a minute? Because I'm going to have a cranky, slight conversation with you. I want to say something about deconstruction.
Sure.
The way I experienced deconstruction was maybe 10 years ago. Deconstruction was talked about so much in art, and it was linked to French literary theory, you know, to Derrida and Foucault and all of that. And I want to put out there that I'm not a theoretical person.
Yeah.
And the way that deconstruction got used in the art schools for a long time, it's actually something that I don't really care for. It's too theoretical. It's too structured. So I'm quibbling about that word. What I would say, maybe in place of what you're saying, it maybe goes back to what we first called some of the paintings that showed up in my book, which is discombobulation. It's confusing.
Yeah.
It's atomized. It's fragmented. So that's me being a troublesome guest. Now I'll shut up.
No, I really appreciate that, John. The reason that I embrace that vocabulary most likely is my lack of art school. Without art school under my belt.
Way too much art school. No.
So that helps me. This is the current show right now up at the Buckham Gallery, and wow, you know, first of all, what an amazing space, Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of it. And it's just a gorgeous show. I couldn't be happier, really, with the selections.
Yeah. So, so let's maybe you can walk us through this a little bit. I know it's just a few pictures, but you curated the show, right, Michelle?
Well, John selected the pieces.
Okay.
All through the call. So, you know, we received 697 images for our juried show, and he selected the pieces. My part in this, other than coordinating, was the actual installation and the layout of the show.
Well, it's stunning. This wall particularly gets me. I love the way. I mean, I love it all, but it's just, you can really see the thought that goes into placement of the work and how you relate the images to one another in the show. And believe me, I've had both experiences in galleries. You know, you come in and it's like, is it a garage sale or is this a museum? And you're definitely on the museum side of things. It's really beautifully done.
Yeah, you know, and it's difficult when you have so many wonderful pieces to choose from to not want to put them all in, but you really need to have the space and the breath to stand in front of and experience each one. And that's what.
One of the things you can see, this thread is there. There's this, you know, representational element throughout, but and almost entirely. There's a couple of exceptions. But then there is this disruption or discombobulation occurring, and it's so resonant for me with our lives. Like this is, I mean, I don't want to. Maybe there's someone out there doing yoga right now, meditating, and the Zoom is somehow just floating into their ears. But there is a lot of energy bouncing around, isn't there? Speaking of energy, this is May Klisch's submission to your show, and I love the way that she's got pretty much pure abstraction and this athlete exploding out of there, and with joy, which that isn't necessarily a theme that we see a lot in the disrupted realism category. What do you think about why is there this somber kind of tone in so much work today? I mean,
I'll tell you something one of the artists told me. I was talking to Andrea Jacobson, who's in the show, and I saw her work in one of the images a little bit earlier. It looks like maybe almost a skull morphing into a human head. And she said, I'm not an anxious person. By nature. She doesn't think of herself as anxious. And yet, one of the themes in her work is anxiety because, Gabriel, as you were saying, we are so hyperstimulated and so surrounded by so many images and so many ideas that it is really, really hard to find your center. It's hard to settle down and you know, quiet your mind. I know I try to close my eyes. I don't meditate well, but just every day I'm thinking, can I just get my mind to stop? Can I get the gears to stop turning? And
I shoot for 5 minutes, John. 5 minutes. If I can get that far, I feel like I'm a monk.
You're a bodhisattva if you can do 5 minutes. But anyways, I think we all share something we share right now. We share a kind of anxiety, and I want to maybe take away the negative connotation from the word anxiety. I don't mean anxiety, it's a bad thing, take a Xanax, but I mean more that awareness of the energies and the problems and you know, everything that life brings us that makes us alive, that then come through us into our artwork. I mean anxiety that way. And that anxiety often spins into what? Fear, concern, all of that. But it also, as you point out in May's work, there's this zest.
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
I think that all can be seen as a kind of anxiety.
We've certainly seen a lot of fear in the last, you know, couple of years. And maybe as artists, you know, one way I stay sane is to get that out onto my panels, onto my canvases, move through it, let that energy push through. May, you're one of the more joyful people I know, honestly.
I mean, I think it's the people that they don't find a way, whether through writing or music or just the way you are with others, people don't find the right thing to do with their anxiety. They get into trouble. You know, they're the people that struggle the most. If you have some kind of a way of putting it out in the world and sharing it through creativity, like I said, I keep meeting well-adjusted artists because artists find a way to do this, to bring these energies into a form that can connect with other people. They bring it to something universal.
That's a really interesting point, John, because I feel like I've noticed this with a lot of artists that if you see the work, you go, well, I wouldn't have thought that. You know, I wouldn't have thought this work would be yours. This is brooding or violent or disturbing even. And yet you seem like you're a pretty, you know, put together person. And I totally agree with that. I think for a lot of artists, it's difficult because what we put out there, maybe we're even afraid to share with the world. We're afraid to be judged for having an idea that doesn't land in the norm, or it could be looked at as cynical or negative or whatever it might be. and we're just processing like everybody else, but maybe they're doing it over the dinner table. We're in the studio, and a lot of times when I'm done with the painting, I'm done with that energy. I get to move beyond it.
I saw
so
that with the Dalai Lama, where he comes into the interview, just all smiles, you know, the glowing Buddhist, and the interviewer says to him, "Are you afraid of death?" And he says, "Oh," he says, "I'm the Dalai Lama. I think about death every day."
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, you know, I think how artists are too. It's North Korea has me worried. A lot of things have me worried, but I'm a pretty upbeat person. Have lunch with me. I think you'll have a pretty good time, you know.
Done.
So you have to balance all this.
the mid coast, I'm there.
Yeah.
I got my vaccination,
By the
so
way,
I'm ready.
the $5 wine tasting, you know. Anyway.
Perfect. Oh yeah, you can come up here for that too. We have a lot of that here, and it's wonderful. Okay, so let's get back to a few more of these artists, because obviously this is about art, and I really want to share you know, what's going on in this amazing world. And there we go. Okay, so here's May's piece, Exploding Out of the Abstraction. And this is, oh, I'm missing the name on this one.
The Zestimate is high.
Okay, it's this. What I loved about this piece, maybe if you can find the name, but what I love about this piece, first of all, it's mounted in the corner, so it's bending the space, which is incredible. And there's these little ghost images of architecture through it. One of the things that I noticed in the book, certainly, and I think, you know, throughout kind of the culture that we've been talking about, is a lot of figurative work, which of course resonated with me because I'm a figurative artist for the most part. But this has that same intensity, that same feeling of movement, bending of maybe time, space, and this is a disruption. You know, whether or not we embrace that word forever, I think I'm going to use it today. It certainly works in this case, and I really wanted to share this piece because it's so. Well, it's different than what we've been seeing, but it so lines up with this concept of movement and that frenetic energy. It's powerful.
So the artist.
Full Gabriel too. Oh, Michelle, sorry.
Yeah.
So the artist is Laura Carpenter Truitt, and what is really exciting is because she is considering the corners, which are so often the space that is just between things. It's disregarded in the gallery. So it is just nice that it embraces and considers it intentionally.
Well, and it's a beautiful transition. We have that one somewhere here, right? Let's see. I want to show you. So there it is. I mean, that's how it sits. And that had to have been pretty fun for you. Like, oh, how am I going to transition from this piece to this? Well, there's the transition piece. Beautiful. And it's interesting because I imagine, I mean, to me, that creates a lot of movement. You have to turn your head just to see the whole piece. And even if it's, you know, even if you're standing back from it, there's the edges that have been addressed. It's very cool. Very cool.
What I was going to say a moment ago is that seeing this show and looking at the entries really expanded beyond the book. I mean, I wanted the book to be a conversation starter. And when Michelle said, oh, you have 693 images to look at.
Wow.
You know,
wow.
The whole topic just got bigger and better through the show and through the process.
Now, this is Yvette Cummings, right? So she is, she's the winner. She was the winner of the Disruptive Realism Prize this year. And I love this piece. Let's see if I can get a little bigger on this. Can I do that?
Is 5 feet by 5 feet.
Right. So this is not to scale. And I think that's important to understand. That's the thing that's missing in this age of internet visual. You know, this Instagram square is wonderful. We were connecting with each other, but it's also hideous, right? Because every painting has been reduced to this singular experience of a scrollable image, and scale has so much to do with the way that we experience work, whether it be tiny or huge. Standing in front of a piece and being enveloped by it is you know, that's an experience that you'll take home and reflect on for quite a while. It's not something you can flip past. In this piece, the figures are, you know, very realistic, and then all of a sudden, absolutely not. I mean, I don't know if that's a pie on her face or if it's just abstraction, but it's pretty. It grabs you. Almost. I've used the word a couple times. That violence. You know, you see a little kid and you have the smash thing on the face, and it's like, what's going on there? The little.
A little bit of Picasso, a little bit of the Demoiselle of Avignon, except a kid's mask instead of an African's mask, and plays on that tension between identity and presence.
Yeah. It's even seeing this kind of fixed floor, right? But then there's these little bits of grass maybe, or paint or whatever, but it's coming up, enveloping their feet, grabbing them, pulling them in. It's a really striking image. And when I saw it, back to scale, when I saw it in the gallery, when I saw that image, I really got it. The scale of this image is so important to it, because that allows for that space to just breathe. Let's see if I can get back to, that's not the last one, I know. There we go. Okay, so then these are Harris, and yeah, that's right, Anne Harris's work. These ones were really captivating to me because this is a disappearing figure. It's lost in the space, and such a sensitive approach. Can you tell us a little bit about her as an artist, Michele?
Actually, John knows her personally, so I think he would be better to talk about Anne, because these are incredible in their delicacy and power.
Yeah.
Anne is in the book, and this is from a series called Invisibles. Anne's work is it always begins with self-portraiture, so it's always her, but then in a way it rapidly becomes a new character. It becomes the woman in the painting.
It's so amazing to have this panel that's just open, but there's so much tension in it.
Some of these are on Mylar, some of them are, there's at least one on canvas, but she is somebody that, and this is something you see in some of the disrupted realism, if you said to her, Anne, I want an absolutely, Renaissance style work of art with all the clarity and all the skill of a Renaissance painting, she could do it for you.
Sure.
But that's not what her interest is. Her interest is to start with that kind of, that group of skills, and then to see what she can do to make it express something. And these express some of her imaginative thoughts about identity and self, maybe the invisibility of women, especially as they age, her own perception of herself. She just creates a really rich set of suggestions that let you into the work. And one of the things I think about disrupted realism is the artists are giving you some kind of a doorway through what they do things, through their style. They let you into the work, so you have to let your imagination and your sensitivity roam through the work and make something of it, just like Anne had to make something of her own image by creating.
And this is, again, larger work. It's profound on two levels. There's so much detail and interest, but at the same time, the presence, I'm sure, of a piece like this, when you stand in front of it, has a lot of power. They're really great.
New York art world, but they'd be $1 million paintings if I was. So maybe the art world will catch up with us.
I hope they will. I hope they will.
Yeah.
This is John Hampshire's piece. Now, speaking of large and small, this is almost, depending on what you're looking, if you're looking at your phone, it's not to scale, but if you're on a monitor right now, it's almost this size. It's not a big piece, but it's so charged. It's so powerful.
Yeah, this one is 14 inches vertical and 11 horizontal. Yeah. And really, to see it in person, there is this glow where each individual mark, it says it's acrylic, but it just seems like there's these layers, clear layers between it, and it builds up, and it's almost like this energy vibrating coming forward in the different layerings of the colors.
Well, this is obviously, this is like, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but there's nothing more disrupted than a figure that you can see and at the same time not see. And I think that goes back to this work. It certainly is this work, and they're polar opposites, but it's the structure, the drawing, the ability, coupled with the complete kind of disregard for that is really punchy.
And Gabriel, something that I think you see in the work, you see painters, and let that work float in the air for a moment. Painters, right?
Yeah.
Using
Yeah.
oil paint, using material, reflecting on screen images. Because we've all in our lives, we have our movies, we have our videos, we have our internet, we have our JPEGs. You know, we're looking at a screen right now to partake in this, in this event. But painters with paint reflecting on screens and photography and cinematography, it's all there in this work. And I think it's complicated in a beautiful way.
I totally agree with that. You can see in this one, that's a perfect time to bring this up. That you can see the digital quality of this. It actually made me stop for a second and go, well, now is this a digital piece? But it's clearly not. But because of what's been possible, I think that one, feeds the other, and we live in this world of digital media. So he looks like he's been pretty inundated with it. This character.
It's really what Robert Hughes would call it. Culture is nature. We used to step outside and paint trees, and maybe we still do. But boy, do we have a lot of screen images in our minds and in our subconscious.
It's been hard for me to get out there and paint a tree lately, but I did accomplish it the other day, and I remembered what what that was about, and that felt really good. This is a pretty striking. Is it Rychek? Mike Rychek?
Ryzak, I think is.
Ryzek? Oh, is it Ryzek?
But
okay.
I've only read it. I haven't actually had a chance to.
Mike,
yeah.
If you're out there listening, apologies if we've mispronounced your name, but Mike Rychek or Ryzek. This is a phenomenal piece. I love the strength of it. It reminds me very much of the Pope. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Help me out here. You know what I'm talking about. There's a famous blue chip guy out there, but Bacon.
Oh yeah, Francis.
Yeah. Anyway, but I love the missing face here. I love this, and then the hardness. It's a statue. It's solid. It's bronze, and then there's so much air. And also just the bending of perspective. This, we're looking, where the viewer is almost below this image. We're looking up at this figure, but looking down upon a cityscape in the background. If you can see, that blue is a cityscape. There's patterning, which is very going back to that digital idea. The colors there seem very neon and digital.
Francis Bacon was mentioned by a lot of the artists I interviewed as someone who influenced them.
Yes.
And I have a Francis Bacon quote in the book, which I think applies to a lot of this. Francis Bacon once said, "My paintings are blurred because my memories are blurred."
Yes.
And memory is another ingredient in many of the paintings.
Yes. And Bacon, it's interesting, going all the way from Anne Gale to this image, and everywhere in between. If you think of like Lucian Freud and Bacon, who were colleagues, and you look at the range of between those two artists, just you can almost find this movement there, this complete explosion of figures and this like singular kind of anatomical focus from Lucian Freud. That combination is what's been occurring, and this is what is striking to me, because this feels like the benefit of being born in this time as an artist is to be able to reflect on the great masters of the Renaissance, all the way up through, Picasso and Pollock, and then find our way and find what we, what we want to say with it. I wanted to share a little bit of my work in regards to the timeline of this, and I don't want to go too long. I know. Let's see what we got here. Oh, we're doing okay. Wow. Hey. So I just want to, and this is what struck me about this book, Disrupted Realism. Let me just stop sharing for a second. What struck me about the book was when I saw this, culmination of work and what you had put together and what we were discussing, I realized that I had been following my own journey during this time, and it echoed all of these other voices. Maybe it's the 100th monkey thing. We're all in our little autonomous studios working through our process. And then the pin drops, or the wait, that's the ball fall. I don't know. We get it. We get something, and then you look out, and it's occurring simultaneously. I know May, you were really working with that. You started from a realist place. You jumped into abstraction full tilt to grab that, and then it was like these two worlds don't. There was a lack of harmony, and I think there can be for a lot of us. I was working in a studio for 10 years, and I shared a studio with a man named Clifford Wilton, who happens to be Nicholas Wilton's father. And he was a Bay Area an artist and an incredible man, a huge life. But he was painting abstracts and very loose, kind of Diebenkorn figurative 2-inch brush, 3-inch brush stuff. And he was on the other side of me, and I was painting these meticulous realist paintings. And I'd be like, hey, what do you think of this, Cliff? And he'd be like, well, it would be great if it was with a 2-inch brush. You know, it was two worlds paralleling each other, but completely separate. And that integration, rather than divorcing, you know, I think we've all kind of grown up with the conversation between realism and abstraction, and this world of choose a camp. And that's tired. That's maybe old news now, but it was really a big part of you know, my experience was which are you?
It's my world. I mean, walking the computer around. So there's Nathan Oliveira on one side of the television.
Huge
and
influence
on the other side of the television is John Swihart. You know, so I have classical realism, I have Bay Area downstairs, and I call it my cultured man cave. And you know, I see it as all part of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but what I think as an artist can be the struggle, is finding out how do we express that? You know, how do we say that in our own voice? Who are we creatively? And Nathan Oliveira, that's so funny that you brought that up, because that was Cliff was a huge fan of Nathan Oliveira's, and that singular ghost figure. He painted so many iterations of that kind of singularity. And I've painted a lot of representational work. My disruption was social and the world, you know, human beings living in this world, but disconnected from the space that we live. Who's this?
That's Nathan Oliveira also.
Oh, that's his as well. Wonderful.
Yeah, don't get me started on him, but anyways, I'll sit back down.
Yeah, no, it's so cool that that's great. It's nice that you have those in your house too.
John,
congratulations, John. Good, well collected.
John, you are a student of Nathan's and also a helper of Nathan's.
Yes, without uncorking about that, he just got me into this field. He was a great mentor and a great artist, great man.
That's incredible. So, wow, and this shows you how compact this community is, and it also sheds a lot of light on why you were attracted to this work, because I've seen your work, and much of it is somewhat realist.
Well, the Bay Area, I went to school in the Bay Area in the 70s, and the Bay Area had a great tradition of abstract painting and had a great tradition of figurative painting. They were both there. So you didn't have a sense that either kind was impossible or that they weren't having a conversation with each other. I think in New York, people had a different feeling.
Yeah.
It was abstract 24/7, then it was pop, and then, you know, there would be these big waves of, as a friend of mine says, there's always an academy. Yeah. And, you know, the next academy, it would wash over Art News and Art Forum, and it would be the top of the market, and everybody would be talking about it. And I have a more level, patchwork, quilty view of what art is. Yeah. And I think it's the view that a lot of painters have. And it's the view that, again, we were talking about earlier today, that the internet gives us of whatever you like, you can find it. You can build your own art world like Lego bricks, you know, all the artists that you like, just put them together and see it that way. I think that's a good project. You curate for yourself.
Right. There was this kind of assertion that art had to be revolutionary for a while, I think, especially at the emergence of, you know, abstraction. They were tearing down this paradigm. And I think there was a war in mind for a little bit, but it it got blown out of proportion, maybe just for press. I don't know.
Well, there's an artist in the
here to
Bay Area
create.
named Hung Lu, who she was in China, went to art school during the Cultural Revolution. And she used to get up in the morning and her friends would say to her, what have you done to support the revolution today?
Right.
And, artists everybody did Mao billboards and that's all they did. And so for that reason, I'm not a big fan of art that has to be political. I think art can be whatever it needs to be. And one of the things I want to say about disrupted realism is whatever you want to say, whether it's personal or political or social or, whatever it is, it's a formalist approach to art that you can adapt to who you are and what you want to say. But there's no underlying ideology. It's not left, it's not right, it's nothing. It's a way of painting.
Right. And this collection of artists, I mean, you could say that the artists that you put in this book were some of the pioneers of this movement, but really this has just been, it's an eternal movement. It's like all the way back to Egypt, as you were saying earlier. This is a moment in time when things start to shift and we see these commonalities and these threads, but it's an eternal walk, right? And there's not really a beginning or end to it.
Absolutely. I love that. Now I'm on board with that approach. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're all part of it. We're all part of it right now in Zoom. And I mean that sincerely. That's not a byline. We're all part of it. Michele,
did you have anything you wanted to share about the show? Because I'd love to just hear some of the specifics. I know we're in COVID and obviously there's people watching all the way around the world, but one of the things that you can see just looking at your screen here is the scale of this work, the grandeur of your space. I would love to know the specifics.
Well, I can start with like a little background about who we are. So Buckham Gallery is, sorry, someone opened the door, is an alias for the Buckham Fine Arts Project. It was founded by a core group of artists and arts professionals in Flint, Michigan, they were painters and printmakers and sculptors, ceramists, theater actors and playwrights. And they wanted to present innovative contemporary art, both visual and performance, for the public's enrichment, but also to make this collective to, push themselves to inspire and energize this group, and part of that was done by bringing art to Flint. And so, my role now is trying to bring work in to our space, not just, for our artists, but, for the community of visitors to kind of challenge the way that they think about art and about painting and to kind of the way they're thinking about it, looking. So, specifically about this show, I wanted to, so I lived in Philly for a long time. And so, John's book was on my radar right away because he had all these great Philadelphia painters that we were sharing earlier. And I was like, well, why can't we do that here?
Right.
Why not bring it here? Because realism is sort of like a gateway drug for a lot of people to get into painting because they like to be able to recognize things. And this more contemporary approach, it doesn't have to be this, as we were saying, this just rendered thing. We are now pushing these boundaries and bringing in the emotions and time and memory. And so we are pushing and expanding the way we're thinking about paintings and these images. So this was just a great opportunity to bring it here. And because I love painting so much, to be honest, I love to bring work that I like so I can live with it for a while. So this is like my home and I am getting to enjoy these things and share them.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. You're right, though. Realism is, I think it's a gateway drug for a lot of artists.
Yeah.
I mean, when you draw something that looks like something, people go, wow, that looks just like that thing. And all of a sudden there's a little clap, a little kudos, and we get to move toward art with permission instead of, oh, what are you doing wasting your time with that? So that, I think it can also be something that we get caught in though, right? And I think that's what's so attractive about this transition from that representational style to something bigger and broader and more emotive.
And realism was denigrated a lot in the middle of the century, and for all kinds of reasons. You know, the
Sure.
art that Hitler preferred was realist, and the modernists were the heroes after the degenerate art show. And realism is a style of propaganda, and it's a style of advertising in some ways. So people make these associations, and they have trouble shaking them.
Yeah.
And it's just a style. It's just one way of showing people the world. Realism in itself, I think, it's apolitical. It's a style. It's a way of painting. But yeah, all these new hybrids, all these new blends, all these new fusions, they give people that foothold in realism, which, as you say, Gabriel, it's so approachable. It's so, you grab onto it, you grasp onto it, but then it can take you somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to walk you through a couple of little pieces here, or well, they aren't little. I work pretty big too, but I want to share a little bit of this process with you because of this gateway drug. You touched on it, Michele. This is about 4x6, but this is a one of my paintings. My thing was the social. So it is maybe social political, but it was like we're living in this amazing world, but we're so disconnected from it. It's as if, as a society, we're on an island, except that the world is ours. And I painted this with the fires on the hill. It's pretty direct, pretty straightforward. Ironically, that year a fire exploded on the hill, and that's what inspired it. And since then, we lost 2 of the towns within our community. My Dave, who's on the call right now, lost his home. The whole place literally was on fire. And it was almost spooky to have this kind of repetition. That was from the American Dream series, and there was a series of figures disconnected from their reality, with the world on fire, and then we saw it, at least on the West Coast. I'm sure you've seen some of that too, John. Just fire everywhere. So it was strange how that worked. This one's actually called Between Two Worlds.
We had orange skies that came from the Bay Area. Fires, starting 40 miles from us in Big Sur. And it was absolutely unbelievable. It was like a dream. It was like a nightmare.
Yeah. It is very surreal. We had black skies. but yeah, and there's a ton of it. People are considering moving from this area because it's become an annual event. When are the fires going to start?
Where are you located, Gabriel? What's your area?
I live in Ashland, Oregon, so just 30 miles north of the California border, on the west coast of the United States of America, for those of you abroad. So this is Between Two Worlds, and this is that, representational and abstraction, not fused, really. The figure sitting on top of the other. So this is the gateway drug is, hey, I can paint a figure. Can I make some abstracts to go with it? And I think it's fun, but it's interesting just to play with this evolution of paint, and then maybe merging it a little bit more. And eventually, I got into, maybe the representational part can start to, it's still very much there, but it can become less of an element. It can become fusion. There's potentially a figure there, but it can also be nothing. And then bringing it all back. This is 4x8. This was at the end of the American Dream series. Same idea, mega yachts, disconnection. There's not a lot of unity. Certainly, this is called Birth of Athena, which I thought was appropriate for, Athena is the goddess of wisdom and war.
Gabriel, you know how maybe every couple of years somebody says or writes a good blog, painting is dead.
Yeah.
As clickbait, painting's just getting started.
Yeah. There's so much more potential now.
Yeah.
Because, as we've been talking about, there's so much more available to us. And you can see the evolution of the artistic process just on this multiplier effect. May, you've talked about this a lot, this idea of finding your way, and then all of a sudden the penny drops and you're there, and you've got a new level, a new iteration of you, and the ability to express ourselves is multiplied.
Well, I do have a question in that same vein for John, actually. So I know, John, you've said that we are the most distracted generation of our times, which is so appropriate.
I have to check my Twitter, and I'm going to get back to you in a second. So go
Okay.
ahead with that question. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
No, no, by the way.
Well
Okay,
played, John. Well played.
Gotcha.
Um,
All right.
That's a joke.
All right. He's
what
fired.
I-
Get out.
Look out, man.
John, what I did find with the pandemic, even though it did disrupt our lives and is in the same theme, I found a little irony there that actually the pandemic, for me, disrupted the distractions that I had. And so in a way, it sort of flipped things on its head. And it gave me this time, or it gave me the excuse to, push away all these distractions and obligations, and then to hone in on the things only I wanted to do, which is curate my art education. Thank God I discovered Nick Wilton and you and Gabe. And then I felt as if that I had the chance to therefore focus on, and as you said, curate my own art education and recombobulate. And so I wanted to find out from you, John, in this time of refocusing, did you find that the artists that you've been following or still following, did that reversal of distraction play into their work at all? Do you see any shift in that paradigm, or did they become less perhaps despairing or disrupted, or have they gone into more regenerative or positive modes? Do you find that?
Well, I think that artists that I know have been pulled different ways, and each of our lives is an anecdote. It's individual. I know people that have had financial disasters. I know people that have had ill family members or even lost a family member. I know people who've had financial struggles, and I know people whose bank accounts are just fine. That's part of the weirdness of right now is situations can be so different. But that said, honestly, May, the thing I've seen with artists, I've seen great productivity. I've seen people do what you have been doing, which is say, okay, I have a lot of time on my hands. What do I want to use that time for? I've seen artists be very, very productive to move their art forward. And I've also seen new communities formed. When this is over, and I don't know if there is an over, right? What is over? We don't know. But let's say in the time ahead, even if we go back to some of the habits we had before the pandemic, we're better connected. We've had great conversations. We've had both solitude and a new way of being in touch as a community, like we're seeing here today, and that will be reflected in the artwork. I don't really know how yet, but May, a lot of people are saying what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a real interesting concept. I'm fortunate, but I also wanted to take this opportunity to ask Michele, because you're out there, you have a physical space. Us artists, we can work in our little solitary space and we're good, but you need to be connecting with people. And I wanted to ask you about how you were, how these times, what they meant to you in terms of the gallery. How are you able to survive by pivoting? And what can artists do to sort of help independent galleries like yourself?
Well, that's a great question. So we did shut down in March, like so many places, but we were able to reopen in July. But in that time when we were like strictly closed, we were trying to reach our audiences and make new friends online by promoting past shows and artworks that we had shown over social media. We did our first thing on our website called a founders feature, where we were highlighting some of our founders from the 1980s and some of their works. And we were just trying to keep a conversation going because so many people were at home and looking at things on their screens. I did a Studio S self-portrait project where I had, different Flint artists taking pictures of their studios and talking about that creative space. Now, when we did reopen and started to find ways to safely invite people back, visitors to the gallery, we wanted to also have ways to reach those individuals who are not ready to come in. And then we started with the online viewing rooms on our website. And since we still aren't having events, I was reconnecting or was connecting with the artist over Zoom and doing these recorded artist conversations. And which I have put up on our YouTube channel for the gallery. And that has been really great. So many wonderful conversations have come from that, and ways it's almost more intimate conversations sometimes. I mean, there's wonderful things happen during the live events where people are able to ask questions, but the one-on-one conversations have been really fantastic. One of the things I have to say, you talk about how we are surviving during this time, and so many galleries are struggling. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we do receive funding from multiple sources. So we are not a commercial gallery that is reliant on sales. We did find with our online viewing rooms, we did have sales directly from the website, which was a new thing for us. So that did happen, and it's been really exciting, but that is not, we are fortunate that's not something we rely on. So really just people coming to the gallery and seeing the works, and artists, just sharing their work with us, and talking to us and coming in, doing these conversations. And yep, and this was our first catalog that May has there that we produced, which includes all of the works from this show.
Wonderful.
That we have for sale.
May, can you flip through that really quick? And maybe, yeah.
How fast and slow can I do this? I'm not really good doing this backwards, am I?
And it has
it's beautiful. It's a beautiful catalog.
And as a plug, you can buy this volume for $15 from Buckham Gallery. Connect with them directly. And while I'm promoting things, while John no longer does this himself, you can buy this volume for under $50 at Amazon.com. So, Gabe, can I plug a few more things before we? I need to plug a few more things.
I can't stop May from doing anything.
No, you can't. I learned that John actually has a wonderful side gig as the curator, a volunteer curator of this little space, a green space in Cambria, and where he is the curator of the Chinese temple. And because he is, among other things, he's a retired art professor, an artist, a blogger, a writer. He now is also a curator of this lovely Chinese temple from the times of early 1800s.
We have one of the few remaining 19th century temples in California. It's a small one, but it was attached to a ranch house from the 1920s on after the Chinese left our area. It actually had a television on what had been the shrine where there'd been a Taoist statue,
Ironic.
But anyways, I got elected president of Green Space recently, which is a small land trust. I'm, really getting involved and putting on special events and using the temple, and we're very proud of it in our community. It's a beautiful little structure.
So if you'll find John Seat's page, if you'd like to contribute to that green space and that particular project of reinstating the Chinese temple, I would, I think that would be a lovely thing to do. And also, John, I recall something from your conversation with Nick Wilton, and you said that you were working on your next book because you didn't want to be just that disrupted realism guy. So almost something. Is it something you can
I
tell
don't-
us
I'm not
about?
working on the book now, but can I take you kind of a little bit sideways and promote something
Please.
else real quickly?
Yes.
The wonderful art center located, actually in the real world, they're located on Bainbridge Island near Seattle, but they're in the virtual world. If you Google Winslow Art Center,
Yes.
once a month I'm doing a webinar for them, and I did one on Bay Area art, which is available for free on YouTube. But I'm going to do one next week on the 17th on Bay Area abstraction. I'm going to kind of do the other side of Bay Area post-war art history, and it's through Winslow Art Center. I'd love to have some of you, take part in that. That's what I've been working on when I'm not Zooming with Gabriel and May and Michelle is that presentation.
I already
Well,
signed
I
up,
can't
so
wait.
please join me.
Glad you'll be there. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for letting us plug that. Back to you, Gabriel.
Well, I mean, I think that brings us to a close. We've reached 1:30. I don't know if there's a way of getting a hold of Facebook here, but if anyone had any questions, I guess I would be happy to answer some questions in the comments here, or if anyone saw some come through. I just want to thank you all for taking this time out of your day to meet with me and have this discussion. It means a lot to me. I know that Zoom calls are plentiful, and I really appreciate being on this one with you. So,
Noreen Nicholson asked a question about where the temple is and how to contribute. So,
I
John,
just put a link.
thank you.
It's greenspacecambria.org. I put up a link, and people can learn a little bit about the temple there. And I'm going to give everybody my email address because I like easy email addresses. It's just johnseed@gmail. And if you have questions about disrupted realism or about the Chinese temple, or heck, you just want to be in touch, there's that.
that's
Actually,
awesome,
I'll plug one more thing.
Yeah.
John, if you allow me, I'll plug one more thing.
Okay. Love plugging. That's good.
Last year, when I entered the Disrupted Realism show, but I had not heard, and I expected not to get in because why would a newbie get in? It was ironic because the day I got notification that I had gotten into the show, was the same day we had made an appointment to have a consultation. And John gave me 45 minutes of a consultation about my art studio, my art making. And then he followed it up with an email to tell me what he thought I should research and study. And I'll tell you, John, it's still on my bucket list, all those things, and I'm slowly checking it off. But it's
I didn't mean to give you homework, May. Sorry about that.
It's part of my curation of my own art education. But if you are so inclined to ask someone of John's caliber to look at your work, please go to his Instagram or website, and John will give you the time of day. So please make use of that while he still thinks he wants to talk to us. So that's my plug. Thank you, John, for that. That really, along with Gabriel's direction, has opened up my art world so much. So
well, in many ways, it's been kind of a lonely time. Like we've all had a lot of isolation. We've all been disconnected with a lot of friends and family that we care about. But there's other ways to be in touch. So that was one of those for sure.
That's so terrific. Thank you so much, both of you, for agreeing to do this. And thank you, Gabriel, for allowing me the latitude to just jump on this and do what I wanted.
well,
And
absolutely. It was not so much an allowance. It's, May, you have amazing energy, and all of you clearly have amazing energy. That's what this is about, is connecting artists and energy. We are solitary creatures in many ways, but when we come together, I think we're a lot more powerful. And so having these kind of conversations is really important, and it's new for me. I talk a lot, but I usually talk just to myself. So it's nice to have you all here too. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for
nice to see you, Michelle and May. Gabriel, nice to meet you. And let's be in touch. Keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. It's great. I hope to make your gallery sometime here.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And if any of the artists out there are interested, we actually have an open call right now for our next exhibition season. Details on the website, buckhamgallery.org.
Awesome. So, you know, that's an important plug.
Yes.
Buckhamgallery.org, open
Yes.
call.
That was
Just to close out, May is an emerging artist, and what she did is she submitted. And that's what it takes. When you see artists that you admire and you go, look at what they're doing with their career, it's amazing, they've done all these things. The first part of that is submitting. It's something that I struggle with. And just putting your work out there and taking that risk. It's hard to be seen, but you'll never be seen if you don't put your work out there. So thank you, May, for taking that risk. And thank you, Michelle, for showing up too. So,
Thanks,
all right, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.